LSU attempts to do something they haven't done since the 2019 season. That is win a season opener. Standing in their way is Clemson at what Brian Kelly refers to as Death Valley Jr. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game between the LSU Tigers and the Clemson Tigers. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. He is Cole Thompson. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Before we dive into everything, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, you can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. And as always, we're powered by our friends over at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/SECU to join today and get started with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Once again, it's FanDuel.com/SECU to get $250 in bonus bets today. It's a battle of the Tigers at Memorial Stadium in Clemson, South Carolina, as LSU travels to the upstate of the Palmetto State as they take on Dabo, Swinney, and Clemson. It's a pair of teams with college football playoff aspirations. And Bear, this is one, simply pick your storyline because there are plenty of them in this one. It's good old Southern fried Saturday night football down there at what Brian Kelly refers to as Death Valley Jr. Who will get the last laugh? Will LSU finally break their losing streak of losing season openers? We shall see. We're going to discuss, preview, predict this game, break this whole thing down. Helping me do so, because I'm Chris Phillips, as always, Cole the Bear Thompson joins me once again. Bear, appreciate you taking the time. We were talking off air. We are both super, super pumped to break down this game because this one feels like it could get a little bit wacky.
I'll tell you what this game is, Chris Phillips. This is the first movie of the summer, Memorial Day weekend, that sets the tone for the rest of the cinema world. That's what this game is. And no offense to Texas and Ohio State, no offense to Alabama versus FSU, no offense to Auburn versus Baylor on a Friday night, or even to Farmageddon this upcoming weekend in Dublin. This game is the one that you look at. This is Avengers Endgame. This is Infinity War. This is Memorial Day weekend that shows on up, and we look back at the summer. It will define just how good of a season we've had in the world of college football, just how good of a summer we had with the movie cinema complex. Like, that's what I view. It's QB1 versus QB2 for me. It's two storylines of Tigers that both call Death Valley home. It's two teams that I do wonder, if you lose this game, are you out of the college football playoff when we get to December? So much to look forward to. There's so much to break down, and how dare you not show your face in Clemson, South Carolina, as they run down the field and touch Howard's Rock. Because I'm telling you what, Chris Phillips, I've already made this bold take before. I don't care. This, my friends, will be the game that we look back come week 14. College football comes to an end. It's the greatest game of the year. I fully believe it. It's a shame that happens in week 1, but I believe this will be the greatest game in college football for 2025.
Yeah, for those who haven't been paying attention, I will be in Columbus, not in Clemson. So I will be posted up somewhere watching this game. Again, thankfully, obviously, there's no scheduling conflicts here because we got big noon kickoff at the Horseshoe. Then this game, of course, taking place Saturday, August the 30th at 6:30 p.m. Central, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, local time, of course. And Bear, I'll be honest with you, I wish I could be in two places at once because you're right. This is going to be an electric atmosphere, a great game. Of course, guys, game being televised on ABC there in Clemson at Memorial Stadium. Again, they also call it Death Valley. So it's the battle of the Death Valleys, if you will. Bear, via our friends over at FanDuel, the latest line looks like this. LSU is a 3.5-point underdog. The over-under set at 57.5. LSU leads the all-time series 3-1. And of course, Bear, who can forget the last meeting? It's when LSU beat Clemson in the national championship in 2019 by a final score of 42-25. Of course, that was Joe Burrow in the gang, Ed Orgeron, that historic team that took down Trevor Lawrence and company to win the national title. But with that said, like you mentioned, Bear, there are so many storylines in this one. And I know LSU fans, you're exhausted with the conversation. Heck, we're kind of exhausted talking about it. But, Bear, we have to bring to light the lack of success in season openers. And listen, it is a big part of this game. Look at the stuff LSU is posting. Look at the stuff their players are posting. 1-0, 1-0, 1-0. I talked to my buddies down there in Baton Rouge that are covering LSU. It is a 1-0 mentality. Bottom line is this, Bear. They know they've struggled in openers, right? It's no secret to them. You've lost to the likes, and it's kind of varied, right? Mississippi State beat you in 2020. You lost to Florida State twice. Then you lose to USC last year, which felt like, to me, Bear, the most inexplicable of all of them. How ironic would it be that snapping your streak, you'd probably beat the best team you faced, arguably, but I say it's probably pretty safe to say, the best team you faced during that stretch. Huge opportunity right out of the gate. Can LSU take advantage of it?
That's one storyline. Here's the other one on the opposing side. Clemson last year got into the college football playoff because they won the ACC. But what happened when they faced off against the SEC? Got boat raced week 1 against Georgia. Wasn't even a game in the second half. And then South Carolina ends their historic 9-3 year with Shane Beamer at the helm because of a Cade Klubnik interception. And because of a technicality that led to an upset by Syracuse against Miami, you got to go to Charlotte. You got to punch your ticket to the college football playoff when you need another comeback against SMU. You weren't supposed to be in the 12-team postseason picture, but you got lucky. And I say that not to be disrespectful because I think Clemson this year is night and day different from last season. But for a lot of folks, there were people upset that SMU got in the playoff over an Alabama, over an Ole Miss, over a South Carolina, because Clemson got the benefit of the doubt of we won our conference, but we lost to teams in the SEC. Teams in the SEC that are on the outside looking in. How is that fair? Wouldn't it be nice if you're a Clemson fan just to shut up the SEC by starting off week 1 against a team that maybe we're overhyping again after a great transfer portal edition when they're talking about their QB1, when they're talking about what they brought in at wide receiver, and you thinking that, again, it's the ACC, we don't belong? I hate to break it to you, and I'll say this to everybody in the world of college football. Clemson is not a good ACC team. They're a good college football team. They're a really good college football team. They're one of the 9 that I could absolutely see winning this whole thing down in Miami. But it starts with week 1. Both these teams, I think, got to go 1-0. There's a saying that when you look at Ohio State and Penn State, it's a 2-0 season. You play against 2 teams, and that's all that matters. And for Ohio State, it's really a 1-0 season with Michigan, and that's the rest of the season. That's LSU's mentality. For my money, it's a 2-0 season for Clemson because you should have the talent to run through the ACC. But can you beat the 2 teams in the SEC? Week 1 and week 13.
Bear, I want to talk about the 2 quarterbacks here. You mentioned it's QB1 versus QB2 in college football. Arguably, maybe not everybody agrees, but most lists you see out there, it's Garrett Nussmeier or Cade Klubnik at your QB1 or your QB2 when you're ranking them. I think I trust Cade Klubnik a little more because I've seen Nussmeier in these types of games, in these types of situations. And again, not all his fault. We'll talk more about it. Offensive line a year ago could not run the football. That's a huge storyline in this one. But I've seen Nuss turn the football over at a really high rate. That's not to say I 100% trust Cade Klubnik either, because I've seen him at times have some back-breaking interceptions, back-breaking turnovers. I mean, I talked to a buddy of mine. He said, hey, Cade Klubnik feels like it's good for 1 a game. You're going to get 1 a game off of him. There's going to be 1 mistake. Which quarterback has been able to eliminate those? I think Garrett Nussmeier's ceiling is higher, if I'm being totally honest. I really do. I think if both these guys play at their peak, I will take Garrett Nussmeier over Cade Klubnik. I say all that, Bear. No doubt it is a massive, massive storyline in this one. We were just talking about Texas, Ohio State, and a pair of news signal callers and the way that storyline impacts that game. But when you have 2 dudes like this, there's no excuses for either. Like, this is the lights are on. Hey, you want to be considered the best quarterback in college football, you got to go out and lead your team and orchestrate a win, find a way to get it done in a ball game like this. Forget the rest of it, right? Like, both guys need their supporting cast to step up, but you want to be considered that dude. You're going to be that dude in the biggest moments, and this is the biggest moment for Garrett Nussmeier and Cade Klubnik. And I think a huge tone setter for both of them because high expectations across the board from a team perspective, but from an individual perspective. Has each of these guys made strides, and how much of strides have they made? We're going to find out immediately.
I think that when you look at this game, we talked about Ohio State and Texas. These are 2 quarterbacks that by the season's end may be in the Big Apple for the Heisman Trophy presentation. And it wouldn't shock us. But going into week 1, you got the veterans. In an unknown world of what is going to be a lot of new at quarterback in the SEC and somewhat in the ACC, you want to set the tone. I want to know what Cade Klubnik's going to look like for the first game back after the Texas game. Because I don't know if you know this, Chris. There was 1 quarterback last season, 1, to throw for over 300 yards against Texas. That's the guy that is currently suiting on up at Death Valley. That's who it is. And I understand that, yes, the game was never in jeopardy and that Texas kind of coasted their way and they took their foot off the gas a little bit. And those somewhat points were still, adamantly because of you put in a couple of backups at this moment. It doesn't matter. 300 yards is 300 yards. And I'm going to take that and run with it because of that is what the upside is of a Cade Klubnik. He has the mobility. He had 2 rushing touchdowns in the Palmetto Bowl that kept Clemson in it. He had the big rushing touchdown against Pitt that kept them in the race to win the ACC title. And what do we know about LSU's defense from last season? Mobility hurt them at times. And it wasn't just Jalen Milroe. Look at the Lenore Sellers game. South Carolina, week 3. You get a big-time touchdown after a fumble. What does 16 do? Well, he takes it and he runs left and he runs right and he breaks on through. And then look at that, hopscotch his way into the end zone for 6 points. Cade Klubnik is not a dual threat quarterback, but Cade Klubnik can move. Cade Klubnik can make plays with his legs. And unlike Garrett Nussmeier, he has continuity with this wide receiver room. It's not going to shock me if any one of these 3 end up being a finalist for the Blitnikoff Award. Antonio Williams, TJ Moore, Bryant Wesco. They got 3 guys that all could be wide receiver 1s at different schools. And there's going to be games where a lot like Alabama back in the day or LSU back in the day, you're going to look at this personnel, Clemson back in the day. You're going to look at this personnel and go, this is the game where Antonio Williams is wide receiver 1. And he gets $160. And the other 2 get 75 and 110 yards. This is the game where Brian Wesco is going to get 215 yards. And we're going to get TJ Moore 78 yards. This is the game where TJ Moore is going to take on over. And he already has that continuity in that relationship. And he gets to play in front of the home crowd. And the offensive line has done a great job protecting for him. And there's not a lot of there's not a lot of change on that side of the football. But I also look at Garrett Nussmeier and I look at his cast of characters, and I look at the fact that he's one of 2 passers that has over 4,000 total yards of offense returning this year. That says something too. And you have an Aaron Anderson, and you upgraded by bringing in a Barian Brown, and you upgraded by bringing in a Nick Anderson, who was a freshman All-American and wins with size. Chris Hilton is fully healthy. And the reports that we have coming out of Baton Rouge is he's kind of taken over. Like, he looks like that wide receiver 1. You have better tight end play with Donovan Green, with Tate Grez Green. My bad. Why am I blanking on it?
Trades Green.
Trades Green. That was my bad. Yeah, Trades Green. You have Bauer Sharp that looks a lot better than what he was running in Seth Luttrell's offense. So maybe I have a little bit more faith in where the quarterback position is for Clemson because of who is their quarterback. But I agree with you. I think of the upside, the potential leans a little bit more with 13 than it does with 2. But at the same time, again, that continuity factor is going to play a lot of roles. I think that both these defenses are going to have their separations. How do you slow down Garrett Nussmeier with deep shots? How do you slow down Cade Klubnik to staying in the pocket? Those are going to be 2 underlying traits that we need to talk about more.
Yeah, I think for both of these quarterbacks, and we talk about the newness in season openers. There's so many unknowns because there's so many new players in today's college football. I mean, you look at LSU, prime example. So many guys they brought in via the portal, especially at the skill positions. How quickly those guys gel and how quickly those guys are able to work together well as a unit. Obviously goes a long way for Clemson. Obviously, you got TJ Moore, Bryant Wesco, Antonio Williams all back. It's considered one of the best wide receiving corps in college football. And they've obviously got a relationship already with a Cade Klubnik. So how much does that factor in this game? Cannot wait to watch these 2 gunslingers, though, Garrett Nussmeier, Cade Klubnik. And I think a point you made too, Bear. I mean, listen, it's kind of a beside the point. I don't know that, certainly the loser of the game is not going to really be thinking about this all that much. But when it comes to the Heisman Trophy race, I mean, I think the one that wins this game probably has I think coming out of this, because I don't think you're going to win with poor quarterback play in this one. So whoever wins this football game, that's probably going to be the betting favorite for the Heisman. Obviously consider what Arch Manning does, because I know he's been the favorite, but that's going to help shape the Heisman race, if you will. I do think there's going to be kind of this perception of whoever wins this game, whoever plays better, whoever outduels the other, is kind of that lead man, if you will, for the Heisman Trophy.
I don't mean to call out Heisman voters. I don't. But what I will say is that there have been times where people just phone it in. I mean, you look at the names that still have Heisman votes that don't pay attention to college football. You know when they are paying attention? Week 1. You know when they're paying attention? Rivalry week. So again, we may end up seeing Garrett Nussmeier put up better numbers than Cade Klubnik throughout the season. We may end up seeing him get 2 significant wins against Alabama or against Florida, for that matter. But Cade Klubnik impresses against South Carolina and LSU when voters are paying attention, the casuals, and he's going to get a lot of praise and accolades. And you just look at the stats and you say, well, look at what he did during ACC play. Good enough to go ahead and impress me. So yeah, I agree with you on that one. What I also will say, I know we're going to get to this next, it's already going to be a tough task for LSU's offense because of what you return defensively for Clemson. They have great dudes, and they have a stud at every single position. Linebacker, defensive end, linebacker, cornerback, safety. They have guys that are going to be top 50 picks in next year's draft. You can't talk that way, I think, right now about LSU's defense. Everything that I said about LSU's defense from last season, it's a night and day difference. Blake Baker realized that he was setting a foundation. He went to Brian Kelly's office. Hey, what's up? What's up, Blake? I need you to spend all that money that we didn't on Bryce Underwood to go get me defensive players. Okay? Challenge accepted. Defense looks good in practice. Defense looks really good going into this week 1 matchup.
Yeah, Bear, again, I think there's a number of different ways we can go here. I think this game, I think for LSU, it comes down to the offensive front. It comes down to the offensive line. It's something we talked about all season last season, their lack of ability to get any sort of run push. We waited and we waited and we waited. And for us, every week it was a storyline. Is this finally the week LSU is able to run the football? The answer was no all season long. Well, now you got to replace 4 starters on the offensive line. You lose a guy like Will Campbell, Emory Jones. But maybe some newness, some new faces can lead to some improved results. I mean, they were bad at running the football. We put it all on Garrett Nussmeier, his turnovers, but I believe he had the second highest, or maybe the highest, Bear, pass attempts per game. Hey,
he had 112 more pass attempts than both Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers, and still had the same amount of interceptions.
Right. And again, you're throwing it more. It's going to lead. I mean, and I think at times as well, man, I think you could tell he felt like he had to essentially put the entire offense on his back. He had to take more risks. I think he had to gamble more. At least he felt like he did. Is LSU able to run the football, Bear? I mean, bottom line. And again, you mentioned that Clemson front 7. It's as good as any in college football. TJ Parker, Peter Woods up front, Sammy Brown at the linebacker spot, just to name a few names. These are big-time NFL dudes. If LSU is going to win this football game, it starts at the point of attack. It's not the sexiest thing to talk about. It's not the most fun thing. But it is the right answer. If LSU wins this football game, I think we're going to be leaving saying, wow, they have made strides on the offensive line. They don't even have to be elite. They don't have to push Clemson around. They got to be able to hold their own, though. It starts with setting a tone up front for LSU. You know you got guys like a Caden Durham, and they've got other dudes as well that, you know, are really talented backs. You just got to give them a crease. Again, they'll be tested out the gate week 1, but you're going to have to get solid offensive line play to win this football game. And if you don't, Garrett Nussmeier might get his head taken off. I mean, like we're going to see more of the same, Bear, of what we saw last year, which is Nuss probably forcing the football, probably making decisions or you know, making decisions he's not comfortable with, kind of like what we saw against A&M, where there's some of these baffling throws, but that is a direct result of the fact you cannot hold your own up front. There's no confidence in the offensive line. There's no running game to speak of, and you're putting it all on 13.
2 stats, in my opinion, are going to make or break this game. Just 2. Tell me what LSU does running the football. Tell me what Clemson does running the football. Last season, LSU
both running games, huge stories. You're right.
Last season, LSU ranked 53rd in run defense. They allowed 140 yards per game. That's not good enough. If you want to be a national champion contender, you got to be closer to 110, maybe even 90. And I think that maybe if you want to get away with it because of what you have currently in Clemson's backfield, you can live off 125. But you can't give up 140. They're ranked 107th in rushing. That's not sustainable. It isn't. And it's not sustainable for a young quarterback. It's not sustainable for a veteran quarterback. It's not sustainable in conference play. It certainly is not the tone setter that you want going into this game. Caden Durham had his moments last year. I mean, he averaged like 5.6 yards a play, had a couple of 100-yard rushing games, 6 touchdowns, 140 carries. He may end up being one of the better running backs in the SEC. He could. But you got to be able to set the tone by getting plays moving. And by the way, you didn't mention one other name that was added this offseason via the portal of all things for Clemson, because we know how Dabo feels. Will Help comes on in from Purdue. That's another defensive lineman that is going to see reps and was very well regarded as a high-volume run defender. So again, Tom Allen comes on in. He's known for having physical defensive lines, and they went out and they brought in another great run defender to add more validity to that front 7, along with Sammy Brown, TJ Parker, and Peter Woods. So can you establish the run? But also keep in mind that Gideon Davidson is the freshman that comes on into Clemson. Gideon Davidson's good. Like, Gideon Davidson by the end of the year may end up being the best running back in the ACC. He may end up being a top 10 running back in college football. There are reports about him and how he has just gelled in this offense underneath what Riley wants to run. Garrett Riley now looking for potentially a head coaching job. It's not going to be the exact same as what they had with Phil Maffa last year, but it'll be enough to feel confident. It will be certainly enough to act like you've made enough strides to where he can be that difference maker. So can you eliminate him? Because if you lose this game and you lose because of a 300-yard performance from Cade Klubnik, it's not great, but you can live with that. With that wide receiver room, with that quarterback playing, you can live with it if you're LSU and find a way to be able to use this as motivation fuel for your secondary that is improved. Mansour Lane's in there. DJ Pickett's making plays. TaMarcus Cooley comes on in from NC State. He's already played against Clemson before, so he knows what these wide receivers can do. AJ Halsey comes on in from Houston. You can live. I don't think you can live with a Gideon Davidson running rampant all over you and moving the chains consistently on third down when you spend all this money on the defensive side of the transfer portal. And again, the same thing for LSU. If you win through the air, that's fine. You got to show that you have life on the ground. You have to.
You can live with it, Bear, but I think the defensive struggles have been most infuriating for LSU fans because it's just something they're not accustomed to. You tip your cap, give credit to your opponent. But, yeah, I think this is a big game for the LSU defense. I actually think the secondary, like you said, talented, it's a question. It's a lot of new guys. I mean, they're all new practically. DJ Pickett, another name, a freshman they're super, super excited about, as they should be. But how does a brand new look secondary hold up against one of the best receiving corps in the country? I mean, I think that's got to be a big storyline here because, again, it's one thing to do it in fall camp and a bunch of talented guys. They all look really good. That is a question for me. That is a storyline for me. Again, a lot of talent. I'm not doubting that. But do we ever get back to a place where we're seeing LSU be LSU on defense? Like we just haven't seen it. And I think if LSU is going to reach their ceiling or get back to the mountaintop, have a shot to win a national championship, have a shot to win an SEC title, they got to get back to being LSU on defense. I mean, I love the pieces they added. You talked about the back end. I look at the defensive front with Jack Pyburn, Patrick Payton. They're going to lean on those guys, obviously, at the edge spots to disrupt Cade Klubnik and make life hell for him. I still question a little bit on the interior defensive line. I agree with you. If you can't stop the run, you're not going to have much of a chance because Cade Klubnik they're going to eat you alive, right? You have to set the tone there first. What does Harold Perkins do in this game? Right? I mean, he is just the ultimate X factor.
Where is Harold Perkins in this game? I think is another thing.
You said what?
Where is Harold Perkins?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's probably going to be at the star. I'd imagine they're going to put him at star. But, yeah, how does Blake Baker use him? I think is a really good point that you make. I mean, is it going to be – are they just going to send him free and have him try to wreak havoc on Cade Klubnik? And I think that's probably the best way he should be used. It's just sort of a weapon out there. But, yeah, what kind of impact can he make? So, back to what you were saying, the back end of the defense, I do think it's a big storyline for LSU. I think the LSU defense as a whole is a big storyline because, I mean, listen, every game has its own flow. This might be a game, and I think it's probably going to be a game that is a little bit higher scoring. I just think when you have a pair of quarterbacks like this, so many high-quality weapons on the outside for both, we're probably going to see points, right? Like, we're probably going to see points, but do we see encouraging signs from LSU defensively that they've made some strides this offseason? And certainly, how does the back end of the defense hold up? Because, again, a lot of talent, but so much new, you just never know what that's going to look like in week one.
No, you're right when it comes to secondary. It's why they completely revamped it. I mean, they told everybody, get on out of here, and we're going to go ahead and bring in guys from NC State, from Houston, from Virginia Tech. And the kind of beauty is they've all hit. We've talked to some people around Baton Rouge, and the way that they've talked about what has changed has been good. Like, I mean, it does feel like that they have depth. It does feel like that they have guys that they could say, hey, certain matchups, we got a 6'4" wide receiver out there. You're going in, you're coming out, and we're not going to miss a beat. So you got to feel good about that. I agree with you. It's a storyline. But for me, Chris, honestly, I look at the front seven of Clemson. It's going to be one of the best LSU faces this year. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they won't have challenges when they go up against South Carolina or Alabama or when they face off against a revamped Oklahoma with Brent Venables calling the shots. But Tom Allen is a respected defense coordinator. Tom Allen last year led Penn State to a top 20 finish in every single category. And because Jim Knowles became available, he left to go down to Clemson. The talent's there. This to me comes down to the offensive line. You kind of wasted a really good offensive line from a season ago. Emory Jones was phenomenal at right tackle. Will Campbell has the opportunity to become an all-pro by the end of his rookie season. You had good depth at the center position. You had continuity. You had veteranship. And that was protecting Garrett Nussmeier in year one. You don't have that right now. Now, you did bring in some transfers. Braylon Moore is going to be your starting center, probably. It does feel like Josh Thompson, the graduate transfer from Northwestern, is going to be one of the guard spots. And DJ Chester, who's had some reps, is going to play the other interior spot. But in my opinion, the thing that I cannot stomach is going to be you watch this interior offensive line get bullied by TJ Parker on stunts, Will Helt on stunts, Peter Woods, Sammy Brown on delayed blitzes, and there's Garrett Nussmeier trying to get a pass off, and he throws into triple coverage because if he just has to let go of that football. That's what I wonder about in this game. If that interior offensive line cannot hold up and Garrett Nussmeier is running for his life, we know the turnovers are a problem. It's been evident for the last year. And by the way, as somebody that defended Garrett Nussmeier last season, saying that he threw it 112 more times than any other quarterback, guys, it doesn't change the fact that 12 interceptions are 12 interceptions. You can't have that. You can't. I want to see what this interior offensive line does. Because if they can hold their own against Clemson, they can hold their own against anybody else in the country, in my opinion. And that includes games against Ole Miss on the road, Florida at home, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Alabama. These are all tests for LSU's front line. If you can hold your own against Clemson, you can hold your own against anybody.
Bear, Brian Kelly against Dabo Swinney. A lot on the line for both these gentlemen. Obviously, I think Dabo trying to get Clemson back to what they were mid-2010s, if you will. There was a feeling, heck, I think even this time last year, but over the last few years, as Clemson kind of lost it, have they fallen off from amongst the elites? All of a sudden, they are now being spoken about in that light. A lot of people picking them to obviously win the ACC, make a run, maybe win the national championship. Some folks have even had Clemson preseason ranked number 1 in their polls. Brian Kelly on the other side, it's college football playoff or bust, obviously, after a really disappointing 2024. You go out, right? He said, judge me in year 3. Well, the product wasn't very good. They go out, they raise money via NIL. They go out and build a roster that Brian Kelly is calling his best roster since he's been in Baton Rouge. Bear, whether you agree or disagree with him, that's what he has said. Bear, I think Brian Kelly needs this one more than Dabo Swinney does. I think for Dabo and Clemson, it's kind of a similar situation, similar combo we were having with Texas and Ohio State. Like, Clemson loses, you want to win your season opener. Obviously, it's a tone setter for both. I totally get that. But you got an ACC schedule waiting for you. And I know you get South Carolina at the end of the season. That'll be a difficult game. But you got an ACC slate you can take advantage of. I mean, you got in the playoff last year going 9-3 in the regular season. You win your conference, you're going to be in. So for LSU, there is far less margin for error than there is for Clemson. And I just think also, too, Dabo Swinney, you've won a national championship. You won national championships, plural. Brian Kelly has not done that. Brian Kelly hasn't even gotten LSU to a college football playoff. He did win an SEC title, obviously, in year 1, but has missed the playoff back-to-back years. LSU's season is not over. This is not a college football playoff eliminator, Bear, as we talked about before, but this one has got a lot on the line on it. I mean, this one really, truly, I think LSU is in more desperate need of this win than Dabo Swinney and Clemson. Tell me why you agree or disagree.
I agree that they definitely need this win way more than Clemson. And it's not just because of playing in the SEC. It's about setting the tone. Again, it's
going to be a here we go again mentality if they lose this game. It will.
Ed Orgeron won a national title, and 2 years later, he was shown the door. Brian Kelly has been given 3 years to figure this out. Year 1, had a quarterback that was good enough to lead you to a 10-win season. Year 2, had a Heisman Trophy quarterback, had 2 first-round wide receivers, had nothing to show defensively, and it showed up against Florida State in Orlando. Year 3, your defense once again, in a revamp year after making some changes, loses to a USC team, which is a fun stat, led in every single game in the fourth quarter and found a way to lose. Every single game they lost by 1 possession in the fourth quarter, and they won against you. So it's a big game because of you've gotten more time, more resources, more allocation, and more benefit of the doubt than probably you deserved. And LSU is a prideful fan base. LSU, in my opinion, may be one of the most prideful fan bases in college football, and I respect them for it because they have expectations and goals, and 90% of the time, they achieve them. And if you can't get it done within a certain allotted period, you're not the guy to do the job. Now, I don't think that they're going to fire Brian Kelly because the buyout's too lucrative, but it changes the way that you view him long-term. It changes the way that I think the college football world views him long-term as one of these guys that we view as top 10 coach that can recruit, that can execute, and can win big games. He beat Nick Saban in year 1. but you also lost to Florida State on a game-winning field goal that would have sent this to overtime. I mean, like, those are the things that we talk about out in Baton Rouge. So it's a bigger game, I think, just because it's a tone setter for the rest of the year. Now, with that being said, for the Clemson side of things, it's a big game for Dabo because of what did Dabo do this offseason? And what has Dabo slowly started to do?
He's finally adapted.
He's reinvented himself. And he said, you know what? I'm not going to go in the portal and get 7 or 8 or 9 guys, but I'll get 2 that I think could be difference makers for us. I'm not going to internally promote like I always do for our new coordinators when they get jobs at Power 4 programs. But I will go out and I will hire somebody that has proven that they can win at a different school. And this thought process of doing things different, I think, has allowed us to kind of view Clemson back in this prominent light of they're legit. They actually are a team that you can trust to make a run to the college football playoff. But it also has to work. It also has to show up. So like for Dabo, he wins this game. The proof of concept is I keep making these changes. Clemson's right back in the running. I made these changes. It ends up going south for us. Well, I was doing things right in one way, so therefore I'm going to go back doing it my old way. Because that's when I was winning championships. So I think it's just for the proof of concept for Dabo's standpoint. This is the new world of college football that we live in. This is the new change that we're seeing. Make sure that it ends up benefiting you in the long run. This is a way to do so. Beating a top 10 team in your backyard from the SEC. It absolutely is. And by the way, I think what Dabo has done this offseason has drastically changed the way that we view him. I think it's changed the way that we view Clemson. And I think that's a good thing. I want it to stay a good thing. Because regardless of how you feel about the ACC or how you feel about other college football conferences, Clemson being good is great for college football. And I don't say that lightly. I say that because I truly believe having a coach like Dabo, authentic version of himself, brings light to a program that really does have the backbone to stand on and say, we deserve better than this. And they have.
A lot of hype for both sides. Somebody's going to leave this one very disappointed and reevaluating themselves for sure, but not readjusting expectations because the expectations of both are firmly set. That being said, Bear, let's lock in some predictions for this game. Like I mentioned, our friends over at FanDuel have the LSU Tigers as a 3.5-point underdog. The over-under set at 57.5. And if you don't mind, Bear, I'll start with this one. Number one, like I said, I wish I could be in 2 places at once. I will be in Columbus, Ohio for the Texas-Ohio State game. I'll be watching this game somewhere at some bar or some tailgate or whatever when Clemson and LSU do battle. Again, really happy that these games, the way they're staggered, this one being the night game, the primetime show. I cannot wait to watch this football game. And again, we're going to Columbus. With all due respect to that game, Bear, I agree with you. I think this very well might be and probably will be the most entertaining game of week 1. And I do agree with you. I think it will probably end up being one of the best games of the 2025 college football season. Bear, everyone is picking Clemson to win this football game. Everyone. Like I'm sure there'll be some out there that are taking LSU, but for the most part, everyone that I've seen is taking Clemson to win. And I get it. It's a good pick. Clemson's the home team. They're at night. I mean, listen, if you've never been to Memorial Stadium, whether you want to call it Death Valley Jr. or whatever, that place gets wild. That place will be rowdy. It'll be rocking. It'll be chaotic. I don't love the optics for LSU bringing a brand new offensive line on the road at night. Is that really, truly where you're going to find yourself? It's a battle of 2 of the best quarterbacks in college football. I know line of scrimmage is where the focus is and where the focus should be. I get that because LSU will not win this game. They have no shot to win this game if they don't get quality offensive line play. If they don't win in the trenches on both sides, it goes without saying. But Bear, I'm most excited to watch the wide receivers in this game. I'm most excited to watch those guys on the outside because big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games. For the LSU side, guys you brought in from the portal, Nick Anderson, Barrion Brown, you mentioned Chris Hilton, Aaron Anderson's another one. You mentioned the tight end room as well. For Clemson, like I said earlier in the show, it's one of the best wide receiver corps in the country. Antonio Williams leading the way, Bryant Wesco, TJ Moore, those guys, like they are legit dudes. There are legit dudes, NFL dudes on the outside. I think it's going to come down to which of those playmakers makes more big plays. I really do. I mean, this is a game that you're going to get your opportunities. I think this is going to be a game. Every game has its own flow, Bear. I think this one's going to be higher scoring. I think the offenses are going to rule the day. Again, FanDuel thinks over under 57.5. They think there's going to be a lot of scoring. I think there's going to be a lot of scoring. When they zig, I like to zag, and I'm zagging with my pick in this one. I am picking the LSU Tigers. There's been such an emphasis. 1-0, win the season opener. Haven't won a season opener since 2019. All the chatter about the offensive line and how much they struggled a season ago. Could not run the football. Garrett Nussmeier, all the criticism he's gotten about the turnovers, and rightfully so for what he did last year. But they know that. Clemson's a team. I still got to see a little bit more. I'm not totally buying all that stock on Clemson. I think what's interesting with Clemson, very talented. Don't get me wrong. But I'm sitting here asking myself, when did we all make the decision that Clemson's all of a sudden elite again? I know they have talent, but they also went 0-3 against the SEC last year. And if you're LSU, you can't be that get-right team for the Clemson Tigers and say, like, it's not going to be a good look for you. If it's like, oh, that was the SEC team Clemson needed to play to get off the schneid against the best conference in college football. I don't think it'll happen. When everybody's going one way, I like to go the other. When everybody zigs, I zag. Everybody's picking Clemson. I'm picking LSU in this football game to go into Memorial Stadium, pull off the upset, if you will, as a 3.5-point underdog and get the straight-up win. Give me LSU 34, Clemson 30, and what I think is going to be one of the best games of the college football season. High-scoring game. I think it comes down to a late drive, a late big-time play from one of those big-time playmakers on the outside for LSU, somebody in that wide receiver room. Maybe it is a Chris Hilton. How fitting would that be after some of the trials and tribulations he's dealt with in Baton Rouge? I think LSU finally snaps that streak. Streaks are meant to be broken. They finally win a season opener, first time since 2019, in a high-scoring thriller. Give me LSU 34-30 over Clemson.
All right.
We're back, baby. We're so back. We're so back.
I completely understand why you want to buy stock into Clemson, because I'm buying stock into Clemson. I will. I am not going to sugarcoat it. I think that Clemson is going to be a top 4 team in college football this season. I do. I believe it. I fully believe in this offensive line. I fully believe in this offensive personnel. I believe in Gideon Davidson. I believe in Kay Klubnik. I believe it doesn't matter if it's an ACC schedule, an SEC opponent. They have the chops to go toe-to-toe with anybody in the sport. They do. But you know what I'm sick and tired of hearing from everybody, including people that we know, people that I need to understand how you can have these type of comments and truly live with yourself. Truly think that this is okay to say. When did we get into a world that Garrett Nussmeier was overrated? When did we get into this world that Garrett Nussmeier was a quarterback that couldn't live up to the hype? That Garrett Nussmeier couldn't meet the expectations? That Garrett Nussmeier is the problem with LSU? Last time I checked, he was the reason why you won that game against Ole Miss last season. He was the reason why you were able to drive after giving up an interception to Nicky Manwari and punch your way into a victory over South Carolina. He was the reason why you won against Baylor in the bowl game. He was the reason why you won against Oklahoma to close out the season. And yeah, there were some moments that definitely you thought to yourself, why are you throwing in double coverage? But again, when you don't have a run game or a second chance to have support, what are you supposed to do? Lay down and die? Or take that shot? Take that opportunity. And when you're trailing by double digits and you know you can't run the football because you need to get as much time on the clock in your favor, and that's going to milk it, I'm sorry, what are you supposed to do? Just go ahead and wait to get sacked and hit reset and now live in 3rd and 13? I'm sick and tired of hearing people talk about Garrett Nussmeier like he is just this casual college football player. He's good. I can tell you what, there's at least, I would say, 100 programs in college football that would love to have 13 as their starting quarterbacks, if not more. And I'm so sick and tired of saying that he can't do what Joe Burrow did or what Jaden Daniels did. Because the bottom line is, let's just call a spade a spade. You didn't think that either one of them were going to do that going into the year. You thought they'd be good. You didn't think they'd be what they were. You didn't think they could win Heisman trophies. You didn't think they could end up leading their team to 10-plus wins or even to conversations of the number 1 scoring offense. You didn't believe that. And you're lying to yourself if you say you did. You are. So don't lie to yourself and say that Garrett Nussmeier is an overrated quarterback. From that standpoint alone, he's played in every environment. He's played against every style of defense. And he's faced every single trial. 3rd and long, gotta have moment, situational football in the red zone, knowing where to pass and where not to, and it's grown. I am a believer in Garrett Nussmeier. I am a believer in LSU and Brian Kelly. I am a believer that this year is going to be different. I'm a believer that that defense is going to create opportunities. And I do believe that even though it may not come in week one, you got to set the tone. You can't have the same story written over and over and over and over and think that there is change coming to Baton Rouge. So let's rewrite the damn script. Back and forth battle in the fourth quarter. This game gets out of control. Cade Klubnik, Garrett Nussmeier end up delivering on their end as QB1 and QB2. Both defenses end up turning out fine. But a Chris Hilton 50-yard touchdown reception in the closing minutes of the fourth quarter, 38-31 LSU over Clemson. This is going to be the game that we talk about that sets the tone for 13, an unlucky omen for every other roster in the SEC. And I'm going to make sure that everybody who has doubted Garrett Nussmeier to start this season, you learn to shut the hell up at the end of it.
Bear, you got me fired up. We're both going LSU in this game. Again, when they zig, we zag, I suppose. So I'm going LSU, Bear going LSU. Guys, we'd love to hear from you. Drop your predictions in the comments. Let us know via social media who you picking, the LSU Tigers or the Clemson Tigers. Going to be a fun one out there in Memorial Stadium in the upstate of South Carolina. Guys, we appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Let us know, again, your predictions for this game. And before we get out of here, want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel because, as always, we are brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. On Tuesday, August 26th, it is FanDuel Futures Day, a new holiday for football fans. It's 24 hours of deals on all your football season predictions. So take a flyer on the MVP race, whether it's going to be Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. You can crown your champion in August as well. Maybe it's the Chiefs, the Lions, the Bucks, the Eagles, whoever it might be, or parlay your division winner dark horses. Mark your calendars. This is your day for your hunches, your hot takes, your calls, and your odds. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now because Futures Day is one day and one day only. And guys, when you sign up, make sure you do over at FanDuel.com/SECU. That's FanDuel.com/SECU. FanDuel, play your game. Guys, once again, we appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Again, as always, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast where you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. For Cole the Bear Thompson, I'm Chris Phillips. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we will catch you all on the other side.